So in a recent, just massive study of top-tier executives, community organizers, and public figures, a staggering number of them, I mean, we're talking over 70% here, confess something pretty wild.
Oh, yeah. It's a completely eye-opening statistic.
Right. They secretly feel like there are just one major crisis, or honestly, just one really bad day away from totally unraveling.
It's completely falling apart at the seams.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, have you ever thought about what actually happens in the brain of a high-level leader or, say, a megachurch pastor the exact second they step off a stage?
That is the million-dollar question right there.
Because the microphone clicks off, right? The crowd disperses, the lights dim, and suddenly they're sitting totally alone in some quiet green room with the sheer crushing weight of their own responsibilities.
It's a massive psychological cliff to fall off of. I mean, you go from this intense adrenaline high of carrying the expectations of thousands or, even just a few dozen deeply invested people to absolute echoing silence. And that happens in the span of maybe 30 seconds.
Which has to just scramble your brain.
Oh, completely. That kind of whiplash does strange, unpredictable things to the human mind.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on that exact moment. We've been reading through this fascinating set of notes and analysis anchored by a piece called Behind the Pulpit, The Weight of Spiritual Leadership.
Really powerful stuff in this one.
It really is, and our mission today is to explore the unspoken realities of ministry and public leadership. We are going to unpack the intense tension between the polished public expectations placed on these leaders and the messy, deeply human battles they fight when literally no one is watching.
And I want to set the stage right out of the gate here, just to be clear. While the material we are diving into is specifically looking at the modern church and spiritual leaders, the core themes are universally resonant.
Yeah, it applies to so many different arenas.
Exactly, because we are talking about the basic mechanics of integrity, the crushing pressure of public expectation, and just the heavy burden of a calling.
Whether that's religious or secular.
Right. Whether you are leading a massive congregation or directing a corporate startup, or honestly, even just trying to steer a family through a crisis. The psychology behind carrying that weight translates across the board for all of you listening.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to really understand this pressure, we first have to look at the massive contrast between the power of a leader's message and the fundamental fragility of the leader themselves.
It's a stark contrast when you really lay it out.
It is. And the material frames this using a really striking ancient metaphor from the book of 2 Corinthians, specifically chapter 4, verse 7.
Yes, so the author anchors the first major argument in this concept of having a treasure in jars of clay.
Jars of clay, yeah.
Right, and the text argues that the surpassing power of the message, so the authority, the vision, the spiritual weight, that belongs entirely to God, or in a broader secular sense, to the calling itself.
So it's not about the person at all.
Exactly. It does not belong to the humanity carrying it. The mandate of ministry is carried through what the author calls fragile vessels.
Hold on, I want to pause right there. Because phrases like anointed assignment or treasure in jars of clay, they can sound a bit, archaic to our modern ears.
Sure, they can feel a little disconnected from a modern boardroom.
Yeah, so for a CEO or a community organizer listening to this right now, what does that actually translate to? Are we just talking about the weight of authority?
That's a crucial distinction to make. In a secular context, think of an anointed assignment as the ultimate weight of authority combined with a deep, non-negotiable sense of purpose.
Like a calling you just can't shake.
Precisely. It's that profound feeling that you aren't just executing a job description. You are carrying a mission that actively alters human lives. That vision is the treasure.
And the jar of clay.
The jar of clay is the physical, emotional, and psychological limit of the human being who is being asked to carry it.
I love that. Think about it this way. I want you to picture a leader not as this flawless, unbreakable marble statue standing behind velvet ropes in a museum.
Right, untouched and perfect.
Exactly. Instead, imagine a roughly shaped, slightly cracked, everyday ceramic pitcher. Now imagine that this very ordinary, porous pitcher is filled with the most pristine, premium, life-saving water imaginable.
That paints a very clear picture.
And if you are dying of thirst, you do not care if the rim of the pitcher is chipped. You don't. You just need the water.
That is a highly functional way to look at it. But unfortunately, human nature really complicates that functional reality.
It really, really does, because what we do as a society is we look at the pitcher, and instead of just drinking the water, we start intensely critiquing the container.
We obsess over the vessel.
Yes. We point out a smudge here, a hairline crack over there. We spend 90% of our time hyper-focused on the flaws of the vessel, completely forgetting that the real value is always supposed to be the water inside.
We demand a marble statue when the job was only ever meant to be done by a piece of porous clay.
Right. Why are we wired to do that?
What's fascinating here is the deeper psychological implication of that specific dynamic. Acknowledging this inherent fragility forces complete paradigm shift for the audience.
Because it shatters the illusion.
It does. We elevate leaders onto pedestals because hero worship actually reduces our own anxiety. If our leader is a flawless, superhuman marble statue, well, then we feel safe.
We don't have to worry about the structural integrity of our community or our organization.
Exactly. But when you truly accept the jar of clay concept, it violently pulls you away from that idolization.
It forces you to realize the person driving the bus is just as tired as you are.
And that is terrifying for a passenger. I mean, nobody wants to hear the pilot is exhausted. But this material argues that the design itself relies on human limitation.
So the fragility isn't a glitch in the system?
No, it is a core feature.
Yeah.
The text highlights this inherent tension between an assignment of massive importance and the reality of human limitation.
And if the audience can internalize that, they stop expecting perfection.
Exactly. It shifts the entire metric from are you flawless to are you faithful despite your flaws.
But man, when a leader realizes they are just a cracked jar and they are placed under that crushing, unrelenting weight of public expectation, a kind of panic sets in.
A deep existential panic.
Yeah, and that panic breeds a survival mechanism, which actually brings us to the next major point in the analysis, the trap of performance.
The transition from authentic leader to performer is incredibly subtle. It really sneaks up on you.
How so?
Well, when a fragile vessel is subjected to immense external pressure to be a marble statue, the natural human temptation is not to admit weakness. The temptation is to simply pretend the jar isn't cracked.
You just paint over the fissures.
You paint over them, you polish the outside so it catches the light perfectly, and you hope nobody looks too closely.
Which is how you end up completely faking it. The material brings in another heavy-hitting historical reference here, pointing to an ancient warning found in the book of Matthew, chapter 23.
Ah, yes. The famous warning about whitewashed tombs.
The imagery there is brutal, but so effective. A tomb that has been painted white looks beautiful, clean, and structurally sound on the outside. But inside, it is literally full of decay.
It's a stark, horrifying contrast.
It is. And the author uses this to draw a hard, unyielding line between outward appearance and inward alignment.
Because maintaining that facade requires a total disconnect from reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's talk about the actual mechanism of that decay. What does that cognitive dissonance actually do to a person's brain?
It's devastating, quite frankly.
Because when your public persona completely diverges from your private reality, that has to be just physically and mentally exhausting.
It drains your executive function entirely. Psychological research shows that maintaining a false front requires massive, massive amounts of cognitive energy.
You're always on guard.
You are constantly monitoring your own behavior, you're calculating how you're being perceived in real time, and you're actively suppressing your genuine emotions.
Which leaves nothing left for actual leadership.
Right. And the text we are analyzing notes that ministry, and really any deep leadership, must be about integrity before God or internal alignment, rather than a polished performance for the crowd.
It specifically urges leaders to value character over charisma and depth over image.
Yes, which is a massive ask in today's culture.
Well, I actually have to push back a little bit on behalf of anyone listening who actually works in leadership, media, or community organizing today.
Fair enough. Push away.
The text mentions platform success, but in our modern era, platform success is practically a baseline requirement just to reach a wide audience.
It's the cost of entry.
Exactly. If you don't have charisma, if you don't have a polished image and a slick PR strategy, the social media algorithm completely ignores you. People just scroll right past you.
That is undeniably true.
So how on earth does a leader balance having a necessary public platform without slipping into that trap of mere performance?
That is perhaps the defining tension of modern leadership. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the material provides a very specific framing for that problem.
Okay, what's the framing?
The author explicitly states that this conversation is not about tearing leaders down for having platforms or for utilizing charisma. Charisma is just a tool. It's a hammer.
Okay, so it has a purpose.
Right. The danger is when you try to use the hammer as the foundation of the house.
Oh, wow. So it's about what is actually holding the structure up.
Precisely. And the text points out that the pressure to perform isn't just an internal failing of the leader. It is heavily, heavily dictated by audience demand.
Supply and demand.
Exactly. Think about the basic economic principle. If the audience, the congregation, or the culture exclusively demands flawless sound bites, high-end production, and constant entertainment, well, leaders will supply a performance.
They will paint the clay jar just to survive the market.
They absolutely will. It's an adaptation for survival.
Wow. So we actually get the leaders we demand. The audience essentially creates the monster.
We do. We are complicit in the creation of performers.
If we applaud the shiny whitewashed tomb, we are basically asking for a cemetery. But if we allow them to be human, to be jars of clay, they don't have to waste all their cognitive energy managing an illusion.
It is a shared ecosystem. The text argues that if the audience demands what it calls presence with God, if they value and give space for a leader's inward alignment over their public polish, then leaders are given the freedom to prioritize that internal health.
That makes sense in theory, for sure. But even with the healthiest, most gracious audience in the world, the pressure of leadership is still a constant heavy blanket.
Oh, it never really goes away.
Right. The temptation to perform and manage your image is a daily, relentless battle. These leaders need a practical survival mechanism. Otherwise, they just collapse under the weight of it all.
The author acknowledges that reality, thankfully, and introduces a principle from the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9.
And what does that offer?
It offers a very realistic, sober look at the mechanics of endurance. It's the encouragement to not grow weary in doing good, paired with the promise that in due season we will reap if we do not faint.
If we do not faint. I want to highlight that phrase because it implies that fainting, which I think we would call total systemic burnout today, is a very real, very present possibility for anyone doing this kind of work.
It's an occupational hazard.
What does fainting actually look like in this context?
Fainting in leadership rarely looks like passing out on a stage. It looks like cynicism. It looks like profound emotional numbness, ethical compromises, and a total loss of empathy for the people you're supposed to be serving.
You just stop caring altogether.
Exactly. To prevent that specific kind of burnout, the text outlines some vital guardrails. It highlights the absolute necessity of accountability, and alongside it, the crucial need for grace in leadership.
Accountability and grace, on the surface, those almost sound like opposing forces, don't they?
They can certainly feel that way at first glance.
But the more I think about it, they actually hold the leader up from both sides, like flying buttresses on a huge cathedral.
That's a great architectural analogy.
Because accountability is the rigid structure that says, hey, I love you too much to let you pretend you aren't cracked. And grace is the safety net that says, I won't condemn you for the cracks I see.
That is an excellent way to synthesize those concepts. They require each other to function properly.
You can't have one without the other.
No. Accountability without grace is just rigid policing, which inevitably drives leaders right back into hiding and performing.
And grace without accountability.
Grace without accountability is just enabling, which allows the decay inside the tomb to spread unchecked.
Which ruins the whole structure anyway.
Exactly. The text roots the ability to sustain that delicate balance in one highly specific practice.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I want to zero in on what I think is the most powerful insight in this entire analysis.
It really is the anchor for everything else.
The closing argument states that behind every pulpit is a person, and behind every message is a life being shaped in what the author calls the secret place.
The secret place.
For you listening right now, no matter what you do for a living, if you are carrying heavy responsibilities, you need a secret place.
Everyone carrying weight needs this.
This isn't just theological jargon. I want to look at the practical mechanics of this. The secret place is a private, unobserved, deeply grounded environment where you are not producing a single thing for anyone else.
You're completely off the clock.
No one is watching, no one is clapping, no one is taking notes. It is a psychological decompression chamber.
The decompression chamber analogy is incredibly apt here.
How so?
Well, think about deep-sea divers.
Yeah.
They cannot just rocket to the surface after being under massive pressure. If they do, the nitrogen bubbles in their blood will literally kill them.
They get the bends.
Exactly. They have to sit in a chamber and acclimate slowly. Leaders operating under the high pressure of public expectation need an unobserved environment to decompress in the exact same way.
Because there's a kind of observer effect in psychology, right? The moment you know you are being watched, your behavior fundamentally changes.
Absolutely. It's called the Hawthorne effect.
Mhm.
It demonstrates that individuals modify an aspect of their behavior in response to their awareness of being observed.
So you can't be authentic if there's an audience.
You cannot find genuine internal alignment while you are being observed. The secret place is where the clay jar actually gets its structural integrity reinforced.
It is the sustainable fuel for your public output.
Yes, if you only ever exist on the stage or on camera or in the boardroom, you will inevitably burn out.
What's so striking about how the author ties this whole thesis together is the stark reality check it provides. Public charisma is ultimately fragile.
Very fragile.
It has an expiration date, it cracks under pressure, or it simply fades as cultural tastes change. But private character, the kind of grit and integrity forged in that unobserved secret place that actually endures.
It is the only thing that survives a genuine crisis. And true, lasting leadership, as outlined by this material, requires a non-negotiable commitment to a two-way street.
Meaning both the leader and the audience have a role.
Right. On one side, the leader must rigorously protect their secret place. They have to do the quiet, unglamorous work of inward alignment. But on the other side, the community must commit to extending the grace required for that to happen.
They have to let them disappear for a bit.
The audience must actively allow the leader to retreat, to unplug, and to be completely inaccessible without demanding a constant performance.
Because if we demand that our leaders be on 24/7, always responding to emails, always toasting content, always available to solve our problems, we are actively robbing them of the exact environment they need to become the healthy leaders we are asking for.
We sabotage them.
It's a totally self-defeating cycle.
It is a paradox that our modern, hyper-connected culture struggles deeply to navigate. We want profound wisdom, but we completely refuse to give people the silence required to cultivate it.
Okay, let's take a breath and recap the journey we just went on, because we covered some incredibly deep psychological and structural ground today.
We really did cover a lot of terrain.
We started by looking at leaders not as untouchable, perfect statues, but as fragile jars of clay. They are carrying something precious, but they are fundamentally limited by their own humanity.
Right. Acknowledging that fragility is step one.
From there, we explored how the crushing weight of public expectation, combined with audience demand, creates the dangerous temptation to fake it.
The whitewashed tomb dynamic.
Exactly. The trap where leaders prioritize a polished image over genuine inward alignment.
And we concluded by identifying the mechanical antidote to that burnout, the critical need for endurance, the delicate necessary balance of accountability and grace, and the absolute requirement of a secret place to develop private character away from the crowds.
It's a complete reframing of how we view those who lead us, and honestly, how we should be viewing our own daily responsibilities.
It changes the whole paradigm.
It really does. But before we wrap up today, I know you have a thought you want to leave everyone with.
I do. This raises an important question, especially for you, the listener, as you navigate today's heavily digital landscape.
What's the question?
If a leader's true character, their deep integrity, and their psychological resilience are forged almost exclusively in the quiet of the secret place, away from public applause and scrutiny, how might our modern society's demand for constant, transparent, 24/7 access to our leaders actually be destroying the very privacy they need?
Wow.
Are we, through our relentless demand for parasocial connection and instant communication, starving them of the isolation they require to grow the spiritual and emotional depth we so desperately expect from them?
Man, that is a heavy, incredibly necessary question to chew on. Are we breaking the jars ourselves just to see what's inside?
It's something we all need to consider.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. As you go about your week, keep questioning the obvious, keep looking for the mechanisms behind the curtain, extend some serious grace to the leaders in your life, and always keep looking beyond the surface. Catch you next time.